Hey everyone, welcome back. 3 behaviors that instantly expose weak men. Machiavelli's identification tactic. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in exile, stripped of power, watching the political games that had destroyed him. But from his downfall, he discovered something revolutionary. 3 behaviors that instantly separate the strong from the weak, the leaders from the followers, the ones who shape reality from those who merely react to it. And here's what's shocking. These same patterns play out every single day in your workplace, your relationships, and your social circles. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. By the end of this video, you'll possess what I call Machiavellian vision, the ability to instantly identify strength and weakness in any room you enter. But more importantly, you'll know exactly how to position yourself among the strong. But first, I need you to do something. Think of someone you know who always seems to get their way, who commands respect without demanding it. Got someone in mind? Good, keep them there. Because I guarantee they don't. Display the 3 behaviors we're about to expose. Welcome back to this channel is dedicated to understanding the hidden psychology of power, influence, and human behavior. Before we dive deep into Machiavelli's insights, make sure you're subscribed. We're building a community of people who want to understand how the world really works, not how we're told it works. Now, what I'm about to share with you isn't just theoretical. These are insights that have been tested in the corridors of power for over 500 years. Fortune 500 CEOs use these principles. Master negotiators rely on them. And once you understand them, you'll see why most people remain trapped in patterns of weakness without even realizing it. We're going to cover 3 specific behaviors that Machiavelli identified as instant indicators of weakness. For each one, I'll give you real-world examples, show you how to spot them, and most importantly, how to avoid them yourself. But let me start with a story that perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. 2 years ago, I was consulting for a tech company going through a major reorganization. The CEO had called a meeting with his top executives to announce significant budget cuts. 8 people in that room, all with impressive titles, all earning 6 figures. But within the first 10 minutes, I could predict with 100% accuracy who would be promoted, who would be demoted, and who would be quietly pushed out within 6 months. How? Because 3 of them displayed the exact behaviors Machiavelli warned about. They might as well have been wearing signs that said, "I am weak, exploit me." And the crazy part? They had no idea they were doing it. They thought they were being professional, reasonable, even strategic. But to anyone with Machiavellian vision, they were broadcasting their weakness to the entire room. This is exactly what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago, when he wrote about the nature of power. He wasn't just writing about princes and politics. He was documenting universal patterns of human behavior that still govern our world. Today, let me give you some context about Machiavelli that most people don't know. He wasn't born into power. He earned it through his understanding of human nature. He served as a diplomat, a military strategist, and a political advisor. But here's the key. Machiavelli didn't just study the powerful, he studied the weak. He was obsessed with understanding why some people consistently fail to achieve their goals, why they get outmaneuvered, why they remain trapped in cycles of frustration and disappointment. And what he discovered applies just as much to your career, your relationships, and your personal goals as it did to 16th century Italian politics. See, Machiavelli understood that weakness isn't just the absence of strength. It's a set of specific, identifiable behaviors that signal to others that you can be controlled, manipulated, or ignored. The 3 behaviors we're about to explore aren't random. They're interconnected patterns that reinforce each other, creating what I call the weakness spiral. Once you're caught in it, every interaction pushes you deeper into a position of powerlessness. The first behavior that instantly exposes weak men is what Machiavelli called the compulsion to justify. In modern terms, we call it excessive explanation. This is when someone feels the need to over-explain their decisions, their actions, or their positions. They provide unnecessary details, multiple justifications, and elaborate reasoning for things that should be simple and direct. Let me show you the difference. Imagine someone asks you why you chose a particular restaurant for dinner. Strong response, I like the food there. Weak response, well, I chose it because the reviews were good, and I've been there before, and I know the service is usually pretty fast, and they have options for everyone, and it's not too expensive, but not too cheap either, and the parking is decent, and see the difference? The weak response reveals insecurity. It's seeking approval and validation. It's saying, please agree with my choice rather than this is my choice. Let's look at how this plays out in the workplace. I once observed a marketing director present a campaign strategy to his team. Instead of simply presenting the strategy, he spent 15 minutes explaining why he didn't choose other options. He said things like, now, I know some of you might think we should focus on social media, and that's definitely a valid approach, and I considered it. But given our budget constraints and the demographic data, which I've analyzed extensively, I think this approach makes more sense. Though I'm certainly open to feedback. Compare that to his colleague who presented the next month. We're launching a 3-phase campaign focusing on email marketing, content creation, and strategic partnerships. Sarah will lead email, Mike handles content, and I'll manage partnerships. Questions? Guess who got promoted? Why do people fall into excessive explanation? Machiavelli identified 3 psychological drivers. First, fear of judgment. They're terrified that others will think their decision is wrong, so they preemptively defend it. Second, lack of confidence in their own judgment. If you're not sure you're right, you'll try to convince others through volume of reasoning rather than quality of decision. Third, misunderstanding of what creates respect. They think more explanation equals more credibility. In reality, it's the opposite. Here's what Machiavelli understood. When you over-explain, you're not just wasting time. You're actively undermining your own authority. You're teaching people that your decisions are up for debate, that your judgment is questionable, and that you need their approval to move forward. Here's how to instantly identify excessive explainers in your environment. Listen for qualifying language. I think maybe we should. It might be better if. I'm not sure, but watch for defensive body language, fidgeting, looking around for approval, nervous gestures while speaking. Notice the explanation to action ratio. Weak people spend 80% of their time explaining and 20% deciding. Strong people flip that ratio. Pay attention to who they're trying to convince. Excessive explainers often focus on the least important person in the room, seeking validation from those who can't actually help them. So how do you avoid this trap? Machiavelli's advice was simple but powerful. Practice the decision-first principle. State your decision clearly. Then provide one reason if asked. That's it. Embrace the uncomfortable silence. After you state your position, resist the urge to fill silence with more explanation. Let others respond first. Prepare your why in advance. Have one clear, compelling reason for your decisions. Not 5 reasons, not 3 reasons. One strong reason. Use the Machiavellian pause. When someone challenges your decision, pause for 3 seconds before responding. This shows you're considering their input without being reactive. Here's your first assignment. For the next week, pay attention to how much you explain versus how much you decide. Keep a mental note, and I guarantee you'll be shocked at the ratio. Before we move to the second behavior, let me ask you something. Are you recognizing these patterns in people around you? Or maybe even in yourself? Drop a comment below with just one word. Explaining if you've caught yourself doing this, or spotted if you've noticed it in others. No judgment here. Awareness is the first step to change. And if you're finding value in this analysis, make sure to hit that like button. It tells YouTube that this content matters, and it helps us reach more people who need to understand these concepts. Because what we're about to cover next is even more subtle and even more damaging to your influence and respect. It's a behavior that most people think makes them look good, but actually signals weakness to anyone who understands power dynamics. The second behavior that instantly exposes weak men is constant consensus seeking. Machiavelli called this the paralysis of perpetual agreement. Second, set decision deadlines. Give yourself and others a specific time frame for input, then make the call. No extensions, no endless discussions. Third, practice the informed decision model. Gather information, consult experts, make your choice, then communicate it clearly, in that order. Fourth, embrace the minority of one principle. Be willing to be the only person in the room who holds a particular position, if that position is correct. Here's your challenge. This week, practice making 3 small decisions without seeking anyone's input. Choose your lunch, pick a route to work, select a movie to watch. Notice how it feels to trust your own judgment. The third and most damaging behavior that exposes weak men is defensive reactivity. Machiavelli called this the trap of immediate response. This is when someone immediately becomes defensive when challenged, criticized, or questioned. They react emotionally instead of responding strategically. They take everything personally and feel compelled to defend themselves against every slight. Here's what makes this behavior so deceptive. Defensive reactivity often feels like strength. When someone attacks you, every instinct tells you to fight back immediately. It feels weak to not respond. But Machiavelli understood that immediate defensive reactions are actually the weakest possible response. They reveal that you're being controlled by others' actions rather than controlling your own. I once watched a CEO completely destroy his credibility in a single board meeting. An investor questioned one of his strategic decisions, a legitimate question, not even a harsh criticism. Instead of addressing the question calmly, the CEO immediately launched into a defensive rant about how hard he'd been working, how the investor didn't understand the market, and how nobody appreciated his efforts. The room went silent. The investor's simple question had revealed that this CEO was insecure, reactive, and unable to handle basic scrutiny. He was replaced within 3 months. Machiavelli understood that defensive reactivity comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what criticism actually is. Weak people see criticism as an attack on their identity. Strong people see it as information. When you react defensively, you're essentially saying, "My ego is more important than finding the truth," or "My feelings matter more than solving the problem." But here's the deeper issue. Defensive reactivity is a form of letting others control your behavior. Someone says something and you immediately react. They're pulling your strings and you're dancing to their tune. Machiavelli wrote, "The prince who allows others to dictate his emotions will soon find others dictating his actions." Defensive reactivity comes in several forms. The immediate counterattack. Well, what about when you immediately redirecting criticism back at the critic? The emotional explosion, anger, frustration, or hurt feelings displayed immediately and dramatically. The justification spiral. You don't understand because, followed by lengthy explanations of why the criticism is wrong. The victim response. Why is everyone always picking on me? Making yourself the victim of unfair treatment. The dismissal. That's ridiculous, or you don't know what you're talking about. Refusing to engage with the substance of the criticism. So what's the alternative? Machiavelli advocated for what I call strategic response, a 3-step process that demonstrates strength, while actually addressing the issue. Step 1, the pause. When criticized or challenged, pause for at least 3 seconds before responding. This breaks the reactive cycle and gives you time to think. Step 2, the acknowledgement. Acknowledge that you heard the criticism, without immediately agreeing or disagreeing. I understand your concern about X. Step 3, the strategic response. Address the substance of the criticism if it's valid, or redirect to a productive discussion if it's not. Let me think about that and get back to you. Or, here's the information you'd need to evaluate that properly. Let's say someone says your presentation was confusing. Defensive reaction. What do you mean confusing? I spent hours on that presentation, and everyone else understood it just fine. Strategic response. I want to make sure my communication is clear. What specific parts were unclear to you? See the difference? The strategic response maintains your authority while actually addressing the issue. Now, Here's what makes these three behaviors so dangerous. They reinforce each other. Excessive explanation leads to consensus seeking, which makes you more reactive to criticism, which makes you explain more, which makes you seek more consensus. It's what I call the weakness spiral. Once you're caught in it, every interaction pushes you deeper into a position of powerlessness. Remember, Machiavelli wasn't teaching people to be manipulative or cruel. He was teaching them to be effective. In a world where most people are trapped in patterns of weakness, understanding these principles isn't just an advantage, it's a necessity. The question isn't whether these power dynamics exist. They do, whether you acknowledge them or not. The question is whether you'll learn to navigate them skillfully or whether you'll remain unconsciously trapped by them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is when someone needs everyone to agree before they'll... But here's the good news. When you eliminate these behaviors,